welcome back, Brett.
Hey, good to be back, Christa.
And welcome back, everyone. So this is exciting. We're doing a 4-part series for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to have a good and healthy holiday season.
And avoid what?
I was thinking you could tell us.
We want to avoid having a shitty holiday season.
And now, before you think that Brett's a potty mouth, he's saying the word should. So don't should on yourself is a thing we often say in therapy, right?
Yeah,
because
right.
Why? Why shouldn't we should on ourselves?
Well, and actually, sometimes shoulds are okay. If I really did something wrong,
sure,
it should is okay. I should be doing better. It's just, it's become so toxic and subsequent toxic shame.
Yep.
When I believe I should have done something, I believe I'm wrong or responsible, and I'm really not, but I believe I am. Now I feel shame that it's not appropriate.
Yep.
And the holidays, as much as we like them and celebrate them, there's a lot of shame floating around because of the shoulds.
Yes,
that
so many shoulds.
we have internally about ourselves, like we talked last time, and about others, about the way things should be. The holidays should be perfect. Yep. And so we're talking really about how to avoid a shouldy holiday season and really empower ourselves through these 4 agreements.
Yes. So the last episode, we tackled the first agreement, which was be impeccable with your word. So go back and listen to that one. It also gives more context for the book. Miguel Ruiz is the author, and he basically talks about how we're programmed from a young age to be very judgmental of ourselves. He says we have a judge kind of like living in our mind at all times, really picking at us and criticizing. And so we criticize ourselves and others. So the 4 agreements is basically the antidote to living with that very critical judge in our minds, right? So the second agreement, are you ready?
Yeah.
Is don't take anything personally.
Oh, so why are you bringing that up?
I was like, you did exactly what I wanted you to do.
What are you saying? You're saying, are you saying I got a problem? Like I take things personally?
I am saying.
I knew you always thought that about me.
What if this episode just turned into a gigantic argument? And it's actually, we'd probably get more downloads than ever.
Probably.
The drama of it all, right?
Yeah.
But no, I was hoping you would take that and run with it. And you did exactly as I hoped you would.
But it's kind of really a good example of how we get very defensive. And notice how I took that as about me.
Yes.
And you had no intention to talk about me at all. You're trying to talk about the book.
Right.
And I hijack the conversation and I make it about me. Not that ever happens at holiday gatherings or family gatherings.
Right.
People stealing the spotlight, make it about them. But we personalize it. And we feel like somebody's attacking us.
Yep.
And the misery that results.
The misery. It does. Exactly. If we have time later, I'll share an example that happened to me recently.
Yeah, cool.
So we're kind of making light of it, but it actually is, like you said, a great example. Humor is a great way to give examples, right? And laugh at ourselves, because this happens so often where someone says or does something and we think, that was a dig at me, right? Mm-hmm. He said that, she did that, so-and-so is doing this because they're trying to get at me or they're trying to put me down. They think I'm not good enough. Right? So the point of this agreement, which again, very simple, but very tricky in practice, I think sometimes, is to not make it all about you. So Miguel Ruiz talks about this emotional poison. We talked about it the last episode as well, where if you believe something negative that someone's saying, if you make it about yourself, you're like taking in a poison that they're putting out there, right? So he's really saying like, this is a choice. Whatever other people say, and he spells it out, nothing other people do is because of you. Let's just let that sink in for a second.
It bears repeating.
Nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. All people live in their own dream, their own mind. They are in a completely different world from the one we live in. When we take something personally, we make the assumption that they know what is in our world, and we try to impose our world on their world.
That's so good. And so when we think about the fun example at the beginning, when you said the second agreement is don't take anything personally, and I did take it personally.
So now why would you say that?
Right. That was what you said I thought was 100% about me. When in reality, it was 100% about you and what's going on with you and what you want to talk about.
Exactly.
And I made it all about me. And then there's this big disconnect and conflict and exactly. But it's hard to, especially when we are faced with criticism. Even when somebody gives us some real criticism, like, hey, you really shouldn't have done that, or, you never do this, or you always do that.
Yep.
Even like if you were to say something like that to me, I'm much more tempted to think that really is about me.
Yep.
And I'll start to defend myself either to you or in my mind, or I'll beat myself up and I'm making this all about me. When really, even when you have a problem with me and you're giving negative feedback to me, that's still all about you. Has like 0% to do with me.
Right. Right. This is so profound, isn't it? Like, it's almost so profound that, the implications are endless. Don't you think? Especially, I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is the world we're living in today. It's like we're always worried about offending someone, right?
Right.
Well, I know I am personally. I'm always trying to be careful to not offend, right? But being offended is sort of a way of taking something personally, right?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I didn't even know we were going to go here, but I'm really glad you brought this up because if you are offended, let's just say, with something I did, that's about you. It's not even about what I said or did.
Right. Right.
And it's a great example of how, like, I'm saying or doing something, even if I say something that's like inappropriate or wrong, and you're offended by that.
Yep.
You are taking this on, my dysfunction. In other words, you're absorbing that
and making it about me, right?
And I think that's what he's talking about, like the poison or the poison. Like you're taking it on when it has nothing to do with you. Let's say I'm very pro women. I've got a mom and a wife, and they tell me I have to be. No, I'm just kidding. I genuinely am. But let's just say, I make some comment against women.
Okay.
And like you're offended at that. That has really nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. You. Like, I'm the problem.
Right.
I am the one with the problem.
If you say something offensive about women, you're the one with the problem.
I'm clearly the one who has the problem here.
Right. But if I take that on and get offended and upset, now look what I'm ingesting that poison.
Right.
Right.
And now you've got a problem.
Exactly.
When you don't.
And now I'm all upset.
You're all upset. Your quality of life is going down. So that would be an interesting episode to talk about, what do we do when we're feeling offended and how do we deal with it? I
mean, I was actually just going to ask because I could understandably imagine someone saying, well, what am I like if someone's saying something offensive, what am I supposed to do? Just sit there? Just take that?
It's a great question. And it feels like if I do, I'm approving of this.
Right.
And shouldn't I say something or react to that? Shouldn't I? In fact, I should be upset. Yes. I mean,
we're back to the
Palooza.
Good.
Right?
Should Palooza.
Yes.
We should do an episode called Should Palooza.
Should Palooza. Right.
But anyway.
Well, we have enough of it in our culture. I don't know if we have to do a podcast on it because it is. It's running rampant. And like we put that on ourselves. Like, I should be upset. I should be indignant because look at this person. But why? What does that accomplish? How effective is that if I choose to remain offended at somebody because they've done something I feel is a violation of my values? What does it accomplish? How effective is it if I get angry at that person and I want to blame that person for being wrong or something? Whereas if I just let it be water off a duck's back, it doesn't penetrate, it doesn't affect me, I'm a lot happier.
Well, I'm having an idea and I want to hear your thoughts on it because if we stick with the example of you saying something that offended me, right? Or that you said something about women, I'm a woman, I heard that. What if I said first, well, not even said first. First, what if I reflect and I say, ooh, I'm taking that personally.
Ooh, I like
first,
that. Yeah.
Number one, right? And then from there, what if I said, because I trust you, what if I said, Brett, when you said what, statement, I took that personally. And just said, I just wanted to let you know that when you said that, I took it personally. Mm-hmm. And I'm not mad, but like, again, I'm reflecting on what's going on with me. I'm trying to think, do you think that would be a way of saying something?
Well, it is. It's a way of responding instead of just sitting with it and feeling maybe angry. Powerless with it.
Yeah. Because I could sit and resent you. Right,
you could. And I don't know if that's going to be effective.
Sure.
Sure. But the funny thing is, it feels like it's being effective. Like, ooh, I'm so mad. And like, I feel like this is effective when it's not. Mm-hmm. And, but notice, like, I think when you say, I take that personally, now, I mean, what's healthy about that is you're saying, this is a me problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should say or do something different. I'm just owning, like, inside of me when I hear that.
Yeah.
Something happens.
Right.
In here. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I think a typical response, if you were to say to me, hey, I take that personally. Yeah. Now I could get, instead of realizing that's you talking about you, I could be like, well, why? Why do you take that so personally?
Okay. And then we could get into a debate or whatever.
Oh, we just spin into this, rabbit hole. And that's where conversations go. We're not really listening and communicating. We're not being civil.
Right.
Whereas I love my son, Drew. He cracks me up. This is great.
Okay.
He'll say, he's got this line. He'll say, well, that sounds like a you problem. And I absolutely love that. So like, if I were to say, yeah, well, I just think women, whatever, I make some disparaging comment.
Okay.
And you were to say, wow, yeah, it sounds like a you problem. That would be awesome.
That stops you in your tracks. And it also, like, I'm not taking it on.
You don't have to take it on, right?
No, right.
And you're just stating the truth.
Which is, that's a you problem.
That sounds like a you problem.
Which is everything else, too. Like, everything people say ultimately is about them.
Right.
I tell my clients this a lot because without realizing we're talking about this specific agreement, we often talk about relationships, the things that people say. So I'll talk with clients about, a coworker said some remark that really hurt my feelings, right? So then we kind of break that down, and ultimately we kind of oftentimes conclude that comment they made had nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right. Everything people say is about ultimately coming from, like this author said, from your worldview, from your perspective. It's like you have your own glasses on,
right? And
we're all seeing the world through our own little glasses,
right?
And whatever I see is about me.
Ooh, I like that. Whatever I see is about me.
Right. Right. So if I'm offended, if I'm happy, if I'm whatever I might think,
right,
it comes from my worldview.
And okay, this is going to sting a little bit for all of us, but I'll even use a little self-disclosure to help.
Okay.
When we do this, it's pride. It is, because notice I'm stealing the spotlight. Like, you're talking about you
right now
and something going on in you. And even if you say it's about me or about men in general, that's still about you and what's going on inside of you. And notice I make that all about me. That's really pride. And when we can see it as pride, I think we're a little more motivated to step back and say, this really isn't about me.
Sure. No, I love that point. It's pride.
Yeah, and I've found this myself when people would give negative feedback, to when I was a pastor. Yeah, you just like, unfortunately, you get a lot of negative feedback.
Ooh, and I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, it's like you never do anything good enough.
Yeah.
And so I learned I used to respond and be like, I'll beat myself up and I should do this better. Oh, they're right, I can't do this right. And
the judge.
And, yes, so the judge, like we talked about last time, also my people pleasing coming in.
Yes.
And so, but then I noticed, like, who am I thinking about? Who is the predominant character in my thoughts? It's me. It's always about me. It's not about the other person. So I actually had somebody tell me once, we had a big pulpit in front, and it was just kind of big and boxy. I didn't want it in front because I felt like it separated me from people in the congregation when I'm talking. So I got rid of it. And somebody said, oh, you're like, that is wrong. You shouldn't do that. And I was should on. And then I'm like, okay, I normally would have defended myself, gotten angry or something. And then I realized, for some reason, this is really important to her. And I let it be about her.
Yep.
And that allowed me to have more compassion and really enter in, like, well, tell me more. Why is that important to you? Oh, yeah, like lead with validation.
Yes.
I can see why that would be important. I might disagree with you.
Yep.
But I'm hearing what's really going on for you because I'm not making this about me for a change.
Yep, exactly. I love it. It's kind of fun too to if you I don't try to eavesdrop on conversations, but the things that people say that you just happen to catch. Again, people will make these blanket statements about life, about the world. And if you kind of tune into that, you notice that, again, they're only speaking about themselves, right? If someone says, I overheard this in a women's restroom once. It was two women and they were chatting, as they were coming and going or whatever. And one of them said, "Oh, men, you can't live with them, can't live without them." Mm. And again, that's an adage that maybe some people have heard before, but I just remember I heard that and I was like, I wonder what that's about for her, right? Because again, I wasn't hearing it as a universal or as a fact.
It wasn't directed at you or anything either.
No, it was just, again, these two women having a conversation and it was wow, she's making a statement that in her mind it's truth or it's true.
Yeah.
And it's just about her life experiences.
Mm-hmm. Now, a man might be listening to that and take offense.
Sure.
She's just talking about herself.
Mm-hmm.
She's not talking about men.
She's not talking about men.
A specific man. Right. Or, she's just talking about this is what's going on in me. The difficulty is that we say these things in an accusatory fashion.
Yeah.
And so it's interpreted as, well, it's obviously about me, when in reality, no, even if it's said in an accusatory way, even if our partner says, "You always" or "You never," that is still 100% about them. It's not about you, even though you're the recipient of the accusation. It's really an indication of something going on inside of them.
Exactly.
And if we can see that, then we can move toward them with compassion.
Right.
But if not, we take it on personally and we move away from them.
Right.
And that's why we a lot of times want to move away during the holidays. It's we want to move away from those holiday celebrations because we're taking on so much that's really not ours. Now, what I think is really comical and super sad at the same time, because I listen to conversations a lot too, is that because what I say is about me and what you say is 100% about you, what's so sad sometimes is that we're really not listening to each other.
At all.
You might say, "Well, yeah, my work, it's really tough, but I really enjoy this. And I get to do this podcast. And then I listen to you at the party.
Yeah.
And I'm really not responding to anything you're saying." I say, "Yeah, my work too. I feel like this and I feel like that." And you're then you start talking about you. And so we have two people talking to each other, but they're really only talking about themselves.
Yep.
And it's almost like they're having a conversation with themselves with another person next to them. And it's so comical and sad at the same time.
It is. No, that's a great observation. And even just the way you were describing that, I think is a helpful image because you're almost taking a step back from the conversation, whether you're in that conversation or whether you're just observing it. And you're just saying wow, each person's really talking about themselves, right?
Which
is, it's more, I think that's a good way to kind of be okay, I'm at ease here because there's nothing that I need to say or do to change anybody or do anything, but I can just observe, again, at your family gathering, just be an observer of conversation, right? Whether you're in it or you're just there.
You said something so powerful and profound there. I'm at ease. And I am at ease when I can simply observe.
Yes.
And not absorb. I like the way that came out. I'm at ease when I can simply observe and not absorb.
Right.
And when we do absorb, like he's talking about in the second agreement, now I have anxiety and I feel like the pressure's on me and I have to defend myself or I have to one up the person, and come back with something greater about me than what they said because I'm making it about me. But if I can just sit and absorb what's going on through observation, not absorb, if I can sit and observe, I'm going to be much more at ease because this isn't about me. And to think people are there talking about themselves. I heard a great quote this past week. People are not against you. They're just for themselves.
That fits perfully.
Doesn't it?
With this. Yeah. What was it again?
People are not against you. And I think that's a good thing to remember because we do. We think things, we take it personally. And to remember, people, they're not against you. They are simply for themselves. Now, a great example of that is when the person cuts you off driving.
Yes.
I take it personally. I think it's about me.
Yes.
I mean, talk about arrogance and pride to think that I'm that important to this person, that they're doing this.
Good point.
All their hurrying is orchestrated to tick me off today.
I am going to tick off Brett Cushing.
Right.
On my way to work.
By cutting him off.
I think that every day.
Right. Yeah.
And I just hope I run into you on the road.
Right. And I think this person is against me, and I get mad rather than realizing they're really just for themselves.
Right.
And if I can notice and I can observe, I'm much more at ease realizing they're not against me. They're about themselves, and they're about what they need to do. Do I think it's selfish? Yeah. Does that violate my values? Yes. Do I do that sometimes? No. Well, yes, absolutely.
Right.
So I just think that those really highlight how we do absorb what people are saying, and then that's swallowing the poison he's talking about.
Right. People are not against me. They're for themselves. I think that's really profound. Okay. So here's a twist.
Yes.
So definitely don't take anything personally, but here's something that I wasn't expecting that I'm reviewing right now. Whatever people do, feel, think, or say, don't take it personally. If they tell you how wonderful you are, they are not saying that because of you.
What?
You know you are wonderful. It is not necessary to believe other people who tell you are wonderful. Don't take anything personally.
Well, that stinks.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's like, wait.
Right.
I get don't take it personally if it's negative. But what if someone gives me a nice compliment? I'm not supposed to take that personally either. So let's talk about why that would be. Why would that be? Do you know? Otherwise, I have some thoughts.
I have some thoughts, but go ahead, jump in.
So if I'm taking the positives personally, I'm still putting my worth out there, right? So I'm still giving other people the power to say, am I good enough or not good enough, right?
Right.
So if I take personally their positive compliments, which feels great, but I'm not feeling that way myself, then if they change their mind, they have my power. Or if they say something negative, they have my power again.
Yeah,
so either
powerless.
way, don't let people have your power, right? So what were your thoughts?
Well, I just want to comment on that. Yeah, you're powerless because you're dependent upon what I call their A words. You're powerless because you're dependent upon their approval, affection, their accolades, whatever. All those A words you become dependent on.
Yep.
And the principle is still there. This isn't about you. Even
go.
when they say you're wonderful, that's not about you. And so I think a lot of us have trouble receiving validation.
Yep.
And I've had to work on just saying, thank you. If somebody says something nice, I used to always say,
no,
oh, wow, it's nothing. Really, no, please, no, don't. And yet inside it's like, I kind of like that. And I've learned to say thanks. Yeah. Because I've also learned it's really not about me. It's just like if somebody has something negative to say about me, that's about them. If somebody has something positive to say about me, that's about them.
It's still about them.
Okay, so cool. I'm glad that there's something going on positive for you based on maybe something I said. Right. Really has nothing to do with me, but hey, cool. Something good's going on for you.
Yep. Well, and I think this also gets into something you touched on earlier, which was people pleasing, right? Because I think if with people pleasing, we've learned that to get the accolades, to get the approval, etc., that's how I feel good about myself. Right. So again, is it inherently wrong? No, it's just not going to be self-sustaining. You always have to keep going and getting something.
Right. You always have to continually perform in order to get an A word from somebody. Right. And that's what makes relationships toxic. When I have to continually perform to get an accolade or to get some attention or to get some appreciation. Now it's toxic. It's also conditional. The pressure's always still on me because I'm personalizing everything.
Exactly.
And yet it has nothing to do with me.
Yep.
And that's what's so sad about it.
Yeah, totally. The last tidbit here.
Yeah.
So don't take it personally if it's negative. Don't take it personally if it's positive. Even the opinions you have about yourself are not necessarily true. Therefore, you don't need to take whatever you hear in your own mind personally. What did you say? That's where I draw the line.
Come on. That's the one I still struggle with.
Well, yeah, because this is, again, in the last episode, be impeccable with your word. We're talking about our words about ourselves, our thoughts about ourselves are so powerful. So if I'm telling myself negative things and believing them, that's taking my own thoughts personally.
Right. And we tend to, I think, with our own thoughts, and we've talked about this many times in the podcast, when other people make disparaging comments towards us, it becomes an all or nothing scenario about how I think about myself. I'm either all good or I'm all bad, nothing redemptive about me, or I think this other person is all good or all bad based on the feedback. And no, this is just kind of what's going on with them. And I need to have more balance in how I think about this other person, not make it all about me.
Yep.
And I need to be balanced in how I think about myself.
Right.
And not make it that I'm all bad. And you got to be careful too. I don't want to make it that I'm all terrific and awesome either.
Right. Exactly.
So we're looking for balance and being impeccable with our word. We're also looking for balance when we get negative feedback from other people. We don't want to take it personally.
Yep.
We can consider it.
I like that. The difference between taking it personally and just considering the facts. Right.
And so we use the term, we want to be curious, not critical. And so I think when we get critical, that's when we get defensive and we're making it all about us. We're really not considering the other person and what's going on for them. But if I can be curious and like, if you give me some negative feedback, like, wow, Brad, can't believe you wore that shirt today. I can be curious. Like, I wonder why would you say that?
Right.
Can you tell me more about that? And if I take it personally, now I'm critical. I'm critical of you for saying something like that. I'm critical of myself. Stupid. Why am I so bad at picking out shirts? And so we want to really notice, like you've said before, just become aware and mindful of, okay, I go critical pretty quickly.
Yep.
And I can become aware of that and choose to just be curious and realize this isn't about me. So can you tell me more, Christa, why you don't like my shirt? You know, what's going on there for you? Exactly. Very trivial example, but
a good example. I think too, I said that I would share an example if we had time. Yeah. So I had confided in a friend about something I was dealing with, and the conversation didn't go as I was expecting. And I took it very personally. And I felt like I went down all these roads in my mind, and it happened so fast because what happened was I shared the situation, and my friend was just kind of, and not really engaging much. And, I'm not used to that from this person. I'm used to more, again, just more interaction. And without knowing what that was all about for her, I took on, she must not care about this, or she is judging me. So, and again, it just, and I've been thinking about it a lot because I need to go back to the person, to my friend, and say, I took that really personally, and I shouldn't, I kind of shouldn't have, right? Like, I made it about me without knowing any of the information of what was going on. So let's say she was judging me, hypothetically. Right. So let's say I'm right, and she was judging me. Who's that about? Not me. Not you. So it's about my friend. So again, this is the stuff that leads to suffering, because all week I've just been kind of like, like I was mad, I was offended. Again, I was just like, I listen to her when she has, again, I just went in this whole circle of suffering, basically. Right. And so I think the author is saying this is the stuff that we're all addicted to, is this type of drama and suffering. And and the good news is I have a chance to now realize that and go back and just ask more questions. And I thank you for doing that transition for me, because I think another thing we can do to help us disrupt this very common repetitive pattern in our lives is go back and actually confess. And say, hey, Christa, you were talking to me about something and you said like, oh, you were kind of upset that I did this. I really wasn't listening to you. I just got really defensive and sorry. I got real defensive. I made it all about me. I want to be more curious about that. Yes. Can you tell me more? And I mean, some people might listen to that like, yeah, right. Who talks like that? Yeah.
Precisely. Nobody talks like that. That's the problem.
Right.
And we can correct this by going back and just confessing it. And we're disrupting the pattern, and we're becoming more mindful then too. Like, yep, look, I did it. I'm not going to judge myself for doing that. I'm just going to realize, oh yeah, I did that. I'm going to make some amends with this.
Right.
So we can be curious instead of critical.
Yep.
We can go back and confess when we've been critical and taken things personally. Another thing we talk about in DBT is they have a Teflon mind. So, all right, so I'm going to say we could be curious, we can confess, and we can be coated with Teflon, if you will. So
the 3 C's.
The 3 C's. So, but Teflon is this nonstick substance. And so when people are kind of lobbing negative things towards us, even those positive things, if we're not going to take it personally, we need to sort of see ourselves coated in Teflon. Like it just slides off.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, now the difficulty is that neurologically what happens in our brain is that our brains like to operate in the most efficient way possible. And so what that means is that when we get positive feedback, that's really easy for us to process. When we get negative things, it takes just a little bit longer for us to process, and that's why it hangs around more, and it's harder to just get rid of that and let it slip off. So we have to be more intentional and just let it be sort of like Teflon, like it's not going to stick, and I'm not going to let it stick. And so it's kind of a visualization. And as we go into the holidays, I think we can, like we said last time, cope ahead, plan ahead, anticipate these conversations. Visualize yourself having great conversations where you're not making it about you, and you're always inquiring more, being curious with people, inquiring what they mean about things. And if you do, you go back, you can confess it with them. And you also cope ahead by just having this coated Teflon on you that this is really about me. This is about them.
Actually, so you said coated in Teflon, right? So I was thinking cope ahead. You could say coat ahead. Coat ahead for the holidays. Coat yourself in Teflon.
I like that.
Then you go into your family gathering or whatever you're doing, and you're just nothing has to be about you.
Right.
So you can be at ease.
Right. So your ugly sweater that you wear is really just coated in Teflon.
Exactly. Yeah. Pretend it's a Teflon coated ugly sweater.
Yes. Yeah.
Or you're welcome.
And that's how you win the ugly sweater contest.
Exactly.
You find one that is coated
actually in Teflon. Yes, exactly.
So, well, we do want us all to avoid having a shitty holiday, because holidays, we make them out to be great and wonderful, and they are, and yet they can be incredibly stressful, and they can turn out to be rather should-y for us. So we can avoid having a shitty holiday by agreeing to these things. And the first one, again, be impeccable with our word and not take things personally. So join us next time as we get into the third agreement.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you as always for listening, and please be sure to leave us a review. While this podcast can't be a replacement for therapy, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today and join us again next time. Nystrom & Associates is always available to those who are struggling. If you find yourself in need of support and help, please check us out at nystromcounseling.com.